Hello and welcome to Legalbytes. If you're new here, my name is Alita. I'm a lawyer licensed in California and DC, and on this channel, we explain the law one bite at a time. We don't give legal advice, but we do talk about how the law works and try to look into our crystal ball to see how things might turn out. If you're enjoying this on YouTube, we'd love it if you could like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with friends, all the great YouTube-y stuff. And if you want to listen while out and about, we're now offering our live streams in podcast form where you can leave a rating and review. Links are in the description below, as well as to our clips channel where you can find some of the best clips taken from our live streams. Otherwise, if you want to catch me elsewhere, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so on Locals, Patreon, or by becoming a YouTube member, or by buying some really awesome Legalbytes merch. Again, all links are in the description below. And with that said, let's get into it.
All right, you guys, here we are, afternoon, day 7. I'm going to do another midday poll for how folks are leaning on the involuntary manslaughter charge. We haven't done any predictive ones yet, though, of how people think the jury is likely to go on this, which could be a different answer than how people want it to go, of course. So I might do one of those later on in this stream also. But yeah, so we've got some testimony that's just started up a few minutes ago. So yeah. Good to be back. Demon wants to know how many days is it going on. So we are on day 7. It should be about 10 court days. So 2 weeks total, 10 court days. I think the 6th or the 7th is the last day. Let me see here. I think, yeah, the 6th. 6th should be the last day of this trial, assuming everything goes on time. And okay, cool. Let's get into it, shall we? All right, new witness here.
Do you swear affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you'll give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? All right. Have a seat. Talk into the microphone.
Ma'am, go ahead and state your full name for the record.
My name is Sherilyn Schaefer.
Can you please spell that?
Ms. Schaefer, how are you currently employed?
I am employed as an EMT in the film industry, a medic.
Can you just explain to the jury the situation, the connection between movie sets and medics? Is a medic always on a movie set, and if so, why?
Usually, if it's a union show, a medic is always on set for the potential that there could be something dangerous that happens. But 99% of the time, we are in charge of making sure the actors, and not necessarily the actors, but the crew have sunscreen, bug spray, Advil, electrolytes. If it's hot out, we make sure everyone stays hydrated. If it's cold, we hand out hot hands. That's majority of it. If somebody gets a splinter or a cut, we take care of those as well. If somebody gets injured enough that they need to go to get stitches or be seen, we bandage them up, we send them off. And then we are in charge of the paperwork that goes with the production to make sure that the injury can be to go through workers' comp, so that it's not coming out of the crew or whoever's insurance.
Okay.
She looks like she really doesn't want to be here. She looks like she's like at a funeral. I have a feeling that we're going to get into some really tough testimony. By the way, Preston Ridiculous, thank you so much for the super chat. If Hannah is acquitted, how will it affect AB's trial? Well, maybe not all that much, because they do have slightly different questions, right? Because it's not he didn't have the same duties that she did. He wasn't the armorer. However, he was the one with the gun in the hand, and you are supposed to act in a particular way when you do have a gun in your hand, and he has extensive experience in the industry as well. So, there'll be a slightly different focus on his trial than there is on her trial. So, I don't know necessarily that her conviction or acquittal would impact his trial in any real way, not any significant way. All right.
Um, how long have you worked generally in the film industry?
I started in the film industry in 2008, or I'm sorry, 2009.
Okay. And how long have you worked as a medic in the film industry?
Since 2014.
And can you summarize for the jury what your medical training consisted of that allowed you to be qualified for this position?
I'm a licensed EMT.
All right. Ms. Schaefer, approximately since 2009, if you can guesstimate for us approximately how many films have you worked on?
Film and TV,
Sure.
40 plus.
Okay, and of those, can you guesstimate for us again approximately how many had real firearms and an armor on set?
Maybe 10, 12.
Was the handling of firearms by the armorer on the set of Rust different than what you were used to?
Yes.
Can you describe to the jury what you noticed, how you thought it was different?
I noticed the armorer on Rust did not secure the weapons as a normal armorer would, or an armorer on productions I've worked on before would. Normally, the weapon would be secured until it was time for the actor or stunt actor to need it. And then the armorer would go to their generally a locked cabinet, grab the weapon, take it to the actor or stunt actor. With the first AD, sometimes the stunt coordinator, depending on who's there, open the weapon, empty it. If it needs to be emptied, show the actor or stunt actor the type of bullet, I guess you would call it, that's going to be in the gun. Show it that it's not real, and then, or essentially check it in front of the actor and the first AD to make sure that everyone's comfortable with it. And then hand it over to that performer for the shot, for whatever shot they are shooting.
And just to be clear, what you just described was what you are accustomed to.
That is correct.
Can you explain to the jury how that procedure worked on the set of Rust?
A lot of times when I would notice our armorer hand the guns over to the actors, sometimes checking them, sometimes not. Generally, once the scene is over, you would remove the weapon. The armorer would remove the weapon from the actor and resecure it until it is needed again. On Rust, that did not happen a good majority of the time. The actor still remained in possession of the weapon, whether it was in their holster or in their hands.
And can you kind of explain to the jurors how long the actors would be left with the weapons in their possession after the scene, and maybe discuss a little bit about how long it takes to do a turnaround?
Okay, there were a few times where they would have the weapon for a minute or two or so after we had cut, but then there'd be other times where we would be turning around, and that's where the camera position changes. Like if we're looking at somebody and we turn around, then we're going to look the other direction at the actor. That can take, depending on all the moving parts, 20, 30 minutes, where they would still be in possession of the weapon.
And I just want to be clear, did you testify that you saw Ms. Gutierrez provide actors with weapons without conducting a safety check?
That is correct.
did you ever have an occasion to notice whether or not any of the actors on the set of the movie did their own safety checks?
There were some times that the actors would open their weapons and look, see either while it was being reloaded or not, opening it up and looking at it. And generally on a film set, you would not do that without the armorer present in front of you. And if you did, then the armorer would need to be called back to recheck that weapon in front of you.
So when the actors would do their own safety checks, was Ms. Gutierrez participating in that?
Sometimes she was near, sometimes she wasn't. I don't recall exactly all the time. I didn't notice a lot, but there were some times where she could have been close by or not, but she was not directly in front of the actor.
Okay.
And it wasn't every actor. It was, just a couple here and there.
Okay. Did you ever take note of how Ms. Gutierrez would load ammunition into her fanny pack?
Yes.
Objection there. Okay. Let's get some questions here. Brittany Chanel says, is it possible for this trial to go over the 7th? It is possible. There would have to really be a need. It seems to me that things are so far moving according to plan. But I mean, trials do go over sometimes. Jerry Roth says that do I think the prosecution has another 8-hour video they will play the whole thing of? I don't know. I hope not. I will answer this in a second because
Ms. Schaefer, do you recall the question?
Could you repeat it again, please?
Did you ever take note of how Ms. Gutierrez would transfer ammunition from boxes to her fanny pack?
Yes. There was one occasion that I did see that.
Can you describe what you saw for the jury?
So there would be the boxes that had a styrofoam with the ammunition inside of it. And there were times I would see her or this one time, I saw her take the box and kind of tip it a little bit and use her fingers to put some in and then hand it back, I believe, to Ms. Zachary and get another box and do the same thing, put more in, put it back, get another box, put more in, put it back. So we're mixing multiple rounds inside of different, and again, I don't know what they were, but mixing different rounds for different weapons. There were some short ones, some long ones.
So during this instance where you saw Ms. Gutierrez load the fanny pack directly from the boxes, if you recall, would she take the time to check every round to make sure that it was inert?
No.
All right.
one thing that is interesting here is I'm noticing it in the chat that I feel like the more witnesses the state brings on that talk about what they saw in terms of like safety issues that concerned them, people are more often pointing out like, okay, but you didn't say anything. How come you didn't say anything? Which is interesting because I point that out because jurors might be thinking that as well on their own by this point. And so it has me wondering if there is a point at which the state puts on too many witnesses from the Rust set, because then it starts to help potentially the defense's argument that so many people were at fault for things happening. Of course, this is people reporting Hannah Gutierrez-Reed's inadequacies and the things that she was negligent on. So maybe it wouldn't actually end up backfiring all that much. But it is interesting that people are much more likely to look back on the witness themselves and be like, okay, but you're not blameless either. It's interesting.
In your experience in the film industry, does the armor always stay with the firearm?
Yes. Or within proximity, be able to visually see. You mean when the actor has the weapon?
Correct.
Yeah, to be able to visually see.
Was that the case on the set of Rust?
No, not always.
I'm going to shift gears and direct your attention to October 21st of 2021. If you can just kind of walk the jury through how that day went and what you recall. You can start before the lunch hour, and then we'll kind of move through it, okay?
Okay. About 6:30 was my call time that morning, and that's what time that I needed to be on set. I arrived on set. I arrived to base camp first, grabbed breakfast. I don't remember if we had a COVID test that day or not, but then I went up to set. And I have a trauma bag that I take with me, and I have a box and a stand that has, inside the box will have the emergency, it will have tissue, it'll have cough drops, it'll have those sorts of things that a crew member might want, as well as containers of sunscreen and bug spray, because at that time we had the sun and bugs. So I went and I set my stuff down at the middle of the town, and on the radio there was a little bit of noise about the camera department being behind schedule, and I had asked somebody, I'm not sure who, one of our one of our other ADs or one of our PAs on set, a production assistants on set. I had asked what was going on, and they had said that the camera department was not ready to go, and wouldn't be ready to go on time. I generally am friends with the majority of everybody on set. I've worked with everybody a lot, and so I went over to where the camera truck was to kind of see if I could see what was going on or talk to anybody about what was going on, because I knew that they had some issues with the production. And I noticed that they were packing up all their equipment. So I watched them do that for a little while, but then I had to go back to setting everything else up that I had to set up. And at some point in time, our first AD, Dave Halls, had called for a safety meeting that morning, which was rare. And it was more of a meeting to kind of get the crew back together again, because we were all kind of spread out and try to figure out what was going on that morning. And so he in the safety meeting, he just said that we were going to have
I'm assuming, okay, sorry.
I can say what it is. Okay, some more questions here. Roost J1199, why do lawyers have to ask permission to approach a witness before she starts asking again? So multiple reasons. Part of it is tradition, but part of it is courtroom safety, actually. If you're approaching the witness, you're also kind of approaching the judge there. And so there are bailiffs who are watching for any crazy thing to happen. There was a recent incident in, oh gosh, I can't remember which state it happened in. And there was a guy who was he getting sentenced? I think he was getting, it was his sentencing. The dude leapt not only over his table, or no, he ran around his table, leapt over the bench at the judge and started assaulting her as she was like gonna deliver his sentencing. He got obviously way worse charges than even what he was there for after that. But yeah, the dude like Supermaned over the over the bench, and it was wild. So like courtroom safety is a big deal. Obviously most lawyers are not that crazy. I can't say all, because I'm sure there are some that are crazy. But it's also, comfort for everyone involved. You don't want to intimidate the witness. You don't want to be physically aggressive towards the witness. It's reasons like that.
Ms. Schaefer, without saying what anyone said, can you summarize for the jury what your understanding was of the purpose for that meeting?
The purpose of that meeting was to get the crew back together as we were scattered, to try to get the day started. We were already so far behind with the camera crew leaving.
And when scenes are being filmed on the set, are you present every time a scene is being filmed?
95% of the time, unless
Okay.
I need to use the restroom or something.
Okay. Were scenes being filmed that morning before lunch?
Yes,
And were you present for those?
yes.
Do you recall if any of those scenes involved the use of firearms?
I'm not sure about the first scene. I don't remember what we shot. The second part was before lunch, right after we moved up to the church. We had a scene. I'd like to say that it used weapons. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. During that scene, did you see any of the handoff of the weapon from the armorer to the actor?
I did not.
Okay. And then at some point, do you go to lunch?
Yes.
And when lunch is over, tell us what happens.
After lunch, I had gotten a ride up to set from our base camp, which was just a few minutes away down the road. And I had walked from where they drop us off up to where the church is, and was waiting for the rest of the crew and the rest of the departments to get to set as well. And so I sat down on the end of a tailgate that was nearby. I believe it was electric truck, but I'm not positive.
Okay. Tell us what happened after that.
Sorry.
It's okay. Take your time.
I was talking to whoever was sitting next to me, maybe a locations person, I don't remember. And the sound of a gun went off, or I heard the sound of a gun. And I looked over at who was sitting next to me and I said, are we rehearsing? Because I didn't know that we were back in at that point. I hadn't heard anything on the radio about us being back in and from lunch. And I said, I didn't hear anybody call, fire in the hole, or normally like you would hear, the armorer would say quarter load, half load, full load, whatever type of ammunition that they are shooting. And none of that was said. So as soon as I said that, I grabbed my normal bag, and I ran towards the church. I wasn't very far from it. And as I was approaching the door, I heard medic emergency come over the radio.
And are you the only medic on set?
I am.
Okay.
Doesn't
So when you
surprise me.
heard medic emergency on the radio,
Budgeting?
did that information tell you where to go?
No.
How did
It
you
did
know
not.
where to go?
I was there. I was sitting there outside the church waiting.
Okay, understood. Please proceed.
So I got to the door, and one of the things that we are taught when you're becoming an EMT is your scene needs to be safe before you go into it. So I stood at the door and I looked around to see what was happening, and I asked what happened, and somebody said, Halyna was shot, or the gun went off, something to that effect. And I looked down at Halyna, who had been sitting at that point to my right, and Joel was on the left in obvious pain. And Alec Baldwin was at the back of the church from me, the opposite end of the church from me. And then I looked down at Halyna again, and as I started going towards her, I believe it was our camera operator, Reed, had asked her if she could feel her legs. And for one, I believe she said yes. For the other one, she said no. And so I knew that there was some sort of spinal injury at that point. And as I was going towards her, I could see the blood dripping from her back onto the church floor.
Was she still seated at this point, or was she?
She was leaning kind of on a pew.
Okay.
And in my smaller bag, I carry trauma shears, and so I started cutting up the back of her jacket to try to find where she was bleeding from. And at some point in time, I believe it was Ann Shim, our second AD, asked me if there's anything that I needed or she could do for me. And it's before that, I'm sorry, I called out on the radio for somebody to call 911. We would need an ambulance. And Ann then asked me if I needed anything, and I asked her to get me my bigger trauma bag, because that's where I keep my trauma related items. And she did. And I asked her to also call Matt Hemmer, who's one of our electricians. I asked her to call him because he had some previous military experience medically, and he was one of the people I knew I could get up there to help me. Being the only medic and 2 patients is not easy. And so I had him just take over for Joel while I tended to Halyna.
And so if you can kind of explain to us what kind of treatment you attempted with regard to Ms. Hutchins.
When I cut up the front of her, or the back of her jacket, I'm sorry, I grabbed some gauze and I put it on the one hole that I could find at that point. And I asked, at that point, I believe it was Reed was next to me. I gave him a glove and I asked him to hold that gauze there. And sometime in the meantime, we had moved the pews, or the guys had moved the pews away and laid her down. And I went to the front of her to cut up the front of her shirt, to the chest area, to try to find the other hole, knowing that Joel had been shot. I knew that it was a through and through, or in one side out the other.
You already suspected that it was a through and through?
Yes, because
Okay.
Joel, because of the way that Joel was screaming in pain. I knew he had likely, whatever had gone through her had gone into him as well.
Okay, please proceed.
So I cut up the front and I could not find an entrance wound. And so I had to keep looking until I found the other wound. I didn't know what was entrance and what was exit at that point. And when I did, I grabbed another gauze that I have and I put it there to apply pressure. And I'm not sure at what point. I think I asked Serge or somebody else who was nearby to hold that and apply pressure while I went and grabbed oxygen.
Okay, and so give us just a little bit of information about your oxygen apparatus and what you did with that.
It's in my main bag, so I grabbed my main bag and pulled it over, and it's a non-rebreather, so it's the mask that goes over the face, and it has a bag at the bottom that inflates, and so the oxygen is delivered that way through the mask. It's got the things go around the back of the head, hold the mask on.
Okay, and just to be clear, we heard some testimony earlier in the trial about Ms. Hutchins being intubated. Did you have anything to do with that process?
I did not.
Okay.
No, she wouldn't have.
Go ahead and proceed.
So I put oxygen on her and I called back to the ambulance. On the radio, I'm sorry. I called back on the radio to make sure to have somebody call back, or whoever was communicating with 911, that we would need 2 ambulances and a bird at that point, because I knew Joel would need an ambulance and she was going to need a helicopter.
You already knew she was going to need a helicopter.
With that kind of trauma, yes. We are 15, 18 minutes from the hospital, from town. And with the way that she was bleeding, I knew she was gonna need more than we could provide, or an ambulance could provide, or Santa Fe hospitals could provide. She needed to go to the trauma center in Albuquerque.
Okay. And do you have any knowledge about the condition that a patient has to be in order for the helicopter to take off?
They need to be stabilized.
And do you know why that is, given your medical training?
I do not.
Okay, fair enough. After you called for 2 ambulances and a helicopter, what did you do at that point in time?
I just continued. Halyna was fighting. She didn't want the oxygen on her face. She didn't want anybody holding anything on her. She was fighting. And
And-
Serge was there too.
Were you after we understand that you were providing oxygen and that Ms. Hutchins was struggling with that? Was there anything else that happened other than that before paramedics arrived and took over that you can recall?
There was a point in time when I first had walked in, there were still people inside, and so I had said to whoever was there, AD wise, to remove anybody that was in the church that didn't need to be there. If they weren't some of the people that I had asked to help, then they needed to be removed. Alec being one of them. He was still in the church shortly after I got in there. Sorry, I'm bouncing backwards a little bit.
No, it's okay. So you asked an assistant director to do that for you?
I believe either assistant director or PA, somebody.
And a PA is a production
Assistant, which is when you're first trying to get in the union as a in their union as an AD, you have to become a PA first, and you have to have so many days of PA work that you submit to the union before you can start as the next. I believe it's the second is the.
Okay, all right, understood. So whoever it was that you spoke to and you asked them to remove Mr. Baldwin and any other unnecessary people, did that person do that for you?
Yes.
Okay. And at some point, did paramedics arrive?
Yes.
Do you have any idea how long it took them to get there?
It felt like forever. I believe though it was. I don't have an exact time. I believe 12, 15 minutes.
Okay. And
I do believe that there was before the ambulance arrived, there might have been somebody else, a police officer, maybe that was around, but ambulance-wise, it was quite some time.
okay, and do you recall a police officer coming in with a medical bag and handing items to you?
I do, vaguely, but I do.
Okay. In your medical training, are you aware of the procedure that's done when a person is intubated, even though you didn't participate in that in this case?
Yes.
And are you aware that sometimes
All right, we've got an objection. So far, yeah, I find her emotional response to all of this like perfectly reasonable. I think even if she is a trained EMT, that's still a traumatic experience. And if she's primarily been working on movie sets, I mean, when's the last time something like this happened on a movie set, right? Brittany Chanel, do you think Hannah got this position because of who her stepdad is? Even if that's true, shouldn't she be more experienced because she has someone to teach her all of these protocols? Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why her stepdad being who he is was helpful to her getting the job, because people may have assumed that she had a certain experience level or a certain training level because of her upbringing with him, I guess. Oh, sorry, 1 second here. And also, Brittany Chanel, if the rounds were rentals, why can't they go back to the rental place and see why there was a live round and sue them too? I feel like that's very important. Well, what the state is saying is that the live rounds didn't come from the rental place. The live rounds came from Hannah Gutierrez-Reed. At least that's what they are arguing. So I guess that would answer why they wouldn't be suing. Oh, I'll get this one in a minute.
Okay, Ms. Schaefer, I'm not gonna finish that question. Thank you very much. I'll pass the witness.
Okay, and also NPC, I'm not. Yeah, also that would be PDQ Arm and Props. So that's a Seth Kenny issue anyway. Cat love dreaming peach. Isn't it appropriate for the jury to know what the legal
Hello.
objection is,
I'm gonna
though?
start with this incident you
Not necessarily, because the jury doesn't necessarily know or understand these objections and what exactly they mean. It can confuse them. It can give them the wrong impression. And also, like when you have these arguments in front of the jury, as we saw the other day in this case, it also gives an opportunity for the attorneys to grandstand in a way that can be not just like they're arguing to the jury in front of them, but also if you are particularly rotten of a human being, you can also start making snide comments about opposing counsel and their competency, and things like that, which is incredibly unprofessional and something that we definitely saw the other day as well. So yeah, it's we don't want
talked about
sorry, we don't want that to be in front of the jury.
Ms. Schaefer.
Hello.
I'm going to start with this incident you talked about on direct with the ammunition and Miss Gutierrez putting it into her fanny pack. Okay.
Okay.
So first, you don't know the difference between blanks and dummies, right?
I do not visually.
Right. And is what you saw in that one instance, Sarah Zachary bringing Hannah Gutierrez the different boxes of ammunition?
She was next to Hannah. I'm not sure exactly where the boxes were staged.
Right, but you saw Sarah bring her a box, and then Miss Gutierrez take the rounds and put them in her fanny pack, right?
Correct.
Okay. And you don't know if Sarah had shaken those boxes before she brought, or those rounds before she brought them, right?
I do not.
Can metal prop guns that can't fire, like replicas, like gun replicas, would those require safety checks?
I missed the question. Any other questions here, or are we? Oh no, we're caught up on questions. Yeah, my biggest complaint about this attorney's cross examinations is that she has a tendency to get like halfway through a question and then sort of like take a left turn and then finish her question, and it's just hard to follow her line of questioning sometimes. Oh, the question was whether or not guns that don't fire require a safety check or not. I mean, she has testified as to like what an armor is supposed to do, though. So, I mean, this question might just be to show the not so uh, lengthy extent to which she understands firearms. Doctor Who 8675309. Are witnesses kept away from the world before testimony, or do they hang out in the court lobby? If they're like about to be called, they might hang out in the lobby. Otherwise, it's not a great
You worked
idea
on
to
several
spend time there
film
because
sets before, right?
they might start talking to other
And you've given us
witnesses.
testimony today about what you saw and see before,
Okay,
right?
sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
And you've given us testimony today about what you saw and safety checks and whatnot, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Or do you know what a replica gun is?
Can you? I can tell you. I would not know if somebody showed me put a plastic gun near me or one that could fire. Whichever way you were referring to replica, I do not know. Because I would consider that a prop gun versus something the armorer would be in charge of.
So you are not, did you just say you don't know the difference between a replica gun and a real gun?
If I were not to see them, touch them in front of me, no, I would not.
Are you aware whether a replica gun even requires safety checks?
I'm confused by your words. Do you mean if you mean a rubber gun, that does not need safety checks. You would not check a rubber gun. But if it is a gun that you put ammunition of any kind in, whether it's dummy or, whatever other the quarter loads that they use, then those would need to be checked for safety. But
To
a
me,
rubber gun would not.
I don't
And
see
you're
this as
saying
evasive.
that despite never working as an armor before, right?
That is correct. I am not an armorer.
And
I think this doesn't tell me that she's being evasive. I think she just has a limited understanding of firearms, and so I think this is just speaking to that.
you've never even worked in props as a props assistant, have you?
I have not worked in props. That is not my craft.
And um, have you ever worked on a set where there was actually a part-time armor?
Part-time? No. Day players, yes, but not part-time.
So who is in charge of the gun cart when the armor has to go to the restroom?
That would, I've never been in that situation. If somebody needed, if the armorer was in the restroom, I would assume we would wait until the armorer was available to do their job. That would not be somebody for any other department that I am aware of.
So, why does that even matter to attending to the gunshot wounds? Because she did testify as to what an armor is supposed to do, the kind of checks that are supposed to happen, and how certain things were firearms and stuff were left out on prop carts. So this is to sort of limit her criticism because of her limited knowledge of firearms.
When you saw this incident with Sarah Zachary bringing Hannah this ammunition, and you saw Hannah, you said put it in a fanny pack, right?
Correct.
You don't know if those were blanks or dummies, do you?
I do not.
And were you aware that Miss Gutierrez's fanny pack had multiple separators in it?
I was not. I did not. I just saw her pouring them in. I did not see anything other than the pouring motion.
And you don't follow Miss Gutierrez or Sarah Zachary all day on set, do you?
I do not.
And you don't know if there are safety checks done that were out of your presence, do you?
I do not.
Is it true that you have filed a lawsuit against David Hall's PDQ, Seth Kinney, and Sarah Zachary, and Hannah Gutierrez?
Yes, it is true.
Among others, right?
Correct.
And in that lawsuit, you claim that you've been traumatized by the incident, right?
Absolutely.
And you are actually seeking money damages in that lawsuit for extreme emotional distress?
That is correct.
That's how you answer.
Did you in fact obtain a civil judgment against Sarah Zachary in that lawsuit for a sum of money?
It has been entered into judgment, yes.
And your
See, that's how you do it. First off, I'm still critical of Morrissey for not bringing it up on her direct. However, when asked about it, she's just like, "Yeah, no, that's true. Yes, I was traumatized. Yes, I sued for money. Yes," because she doesn't look like she's being shady or weird or anything. Like she looks like she's like, "Yeah, I'm entirely justified for all the crap that I experienced as a result of all of this, and there's nothing wrong with that." So it's this is the way to handle those kind of questions about lawsuits, civil lawsuits where you are going for financial judgment, etc. Um, that's how you handle it. Not like the Dolly Grip guy who was evasive as all hell, and it just made it suspicious.
your case against Ms. Gutierrez, that's still pending, right?
That is correct.
Do you believe that your testimony here today is going to help you in your civil case against her?
I'm not here for my civil case. I'm here for this case.
And I understand what you're
Good
here
answer.
for, ma'am, but do you believe that your testimony here is going to help you in that case?
I'm not thinking about that case. I'm thinking about the fact that had our armorer or our first AD done their jobs, we would not be here. A woman would not be dead. A mother would not be gone.
And you filed a civil lawsuit over this
Yes,
for your damages
correct.
to get money.
Not for money. It's not how it started.
And you, ma'am, are an EMT basic or an EMT? What is your EMT training?
EMT. There was an EMT, there's EMT advanced or advanced EMT, and there's paramedic.
And you do have a certification, right?
Yes, I do.
Are you licensed through the state of New Mexico?
I am, and the state of California, as well as the National Registry.
In fact, you also have medical experience working at a hospital for almost 3 years,
That
right?
is correct.
And that was in an overflow unit for the emergency room? We need to approach.
All right, another objection. So she's kept a relatively measured tone also throughout all of this. Um, and when getting pressed on this, it's having some anger come back to the other, like in response is fine, perfectly natural. To me, I don't see the same sort of like sudden flip of a switch. She's kept it an even tone. She's getting a bit more frustrated the more questions she's asked about the lawsuit. Um, and actually maybe not frustrated, but more indignant, I think is the word for it, at least that I would put to it. Um, and yeah, but she's holding up well. She is. Jerry Roth, why do the state's witnesses seem so pissed off at defense questions? It's cross-examination. I mean, just keep in mind they're in the hot seat for these questions. So there are going to be a number of questions that are going to maybe sting a little bit. That's just the nature of cross-examination. You've got to be willing.
What is your
Sorry, you've got to be willing when you are cross-examining a witness. You have to be willing to put them in uncomfortable position, and to put yourself in that a-hole kind of role. So but this witness so far is holding up. She's holding up pretty well.
what is your experience? You did say you worked at the hospital, but what is your experience with treating gunshot wounds?
I do not have experience with gunshot wounds. They were not on the floor I worked on.
Why wouldn't you be trained on that type of injury when you're dealing on a set with real guns?
I am trained for it. You asked about my experience at the hospital.
Okay, so you are trained with treating gunshot wounds,
Correct.
but you just don't have experience actually applying that training. Is that fair?
Not in the hospital setting or outside of it, correct?
You said on direct that you had 2 trauma bags.
I have my normal bag, which has it's a 96% bag. It's kind of like a walking Walgreens, but it has gauze in it and trauma shoes in case something else is needed until I get my main trauma bag.
Did you have any equipment with you on that day specifically addressed to treating a gunshot wound?
No,
You didn't have chest seals?
no.
Did you have any IVs?
I am not licensed to start IVs. So I would not.
Yeah, I
And
don't.
we are on a movie set where there should be no
Ah.
gunshot wounds.
Yeah. Given the way that she's handled the lawsuit questions, she's retained a lot of goodwill, in my opinion. I think that going in and criticizing her and her role on treating and caring for the gunshot wounds, uh, I don't know. I don't know that I particularly like that. I mean, it's the same thing as like trying to, on cross-examination, asking the medical examiner so many questions about the care that Halyna Hutchins had. The intubation, which I mean, sure, yeah, those are big errors, but you end up just looking like you are trying to blame everyone, which is not it's in my opinion, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed has people that she can definitely point a strong finger at, and those are very good, strong arguments against them. But when you start going after the treating, paramedics and the EMT that came to show up and all that kind of stuff, it starts to look like Hannah is blaming anyone and everyone who possibly could be involved in this whole thing. And that makes her look like she's not taking accountability. And there might be a bad reaction to that. So I'm very wary of this strategy of just going after every possible lead to go after these. Like you can be judicious in this, and you don't have to go down every single avenue in these to make a strong case. So I just it's yeah, I desperation, I think is a good way to put it, Harry Funmaker. I don't I don't know that I particularly like this strategy. I mean, especially because there's nothing here that she's said that indicates this is someone that we should criticize. The jury might not like seeing the defense attorney criticize her in this way.
Well, are there other things on a movie set that could cause a thoracic puncture on the set?
Not generally. Not generally. If there is going to be something that's going to happen where something more traumatic like that could happen, then we would request a standby ambulance to be on set with us so that we had all the gear and equipment needed, as well as additional medics to help.
But this movie had knives involved in it, right?
I could not tell you.
And horses,
There were horses.
snakes.
There were wild snakes. We did not bring them onto set.
Can we approach?
Yeah, LK Ryden, that's an interesting point. I'm not going to lie, considering what I've heard from the people within healthcare that I know and what they've told me, it's weird to me that she is suing over a job-related situation. However, we don't know about the knowledge of the people on the jury. Some of them could be from the healthcare profession, healthcare industry. They might not. If there's no one on the jury who has spent time as, as someone in the medical profession, they're going to look at this and be like, "What are you doing going after this poor woman who tried to save Halyna's life and used like she was the EMT that responded first." Just because that's a good point, but would this still just qualify as zealous advocacy? Well, no, let me say this. This absolutely is zealous advocacy. Whether I agree with the strategy or not, this is zealous advocacy. I mean, her being willing to go there and become the villain to some people, and especially to this witness, like that is zealous advocacy. So she's not, in terms of professional responsibility, she's not breaking any rules on anything like that. But what I'm talking about more is the choice. I mean, every trial has a strategy. Every trial has multiple possibilities for a strategy. And as a lot of people say, the right one is the one that wins. So I can comment all I want, and if they end up getting an acquittal, then okay, that strategy worked. But it's just, this is just my thoughts on this cross-examination. I don't think this is going particularly well for the defense. So, yeah.
Do you know who intubated Miss Hutchins?
I do not. I can assume, but I do not.
You said you can assume. Well, I mean, did you see it happen?
I did not.
Okay. Prior to all of these concerns that you're telling us about here today with Ms. Gutierrez, did you never raised any of those concerns with anyone?
I did not.
Not even the safety director, David Halls?
I did not.
And you said on direct, I believe, that prior to the shot that you heard on that day, that I think I heard you say, I want to get it clear, that you did not hear Dave Halls yell out, "Rehearsals up, first team on set." Did you ever hear that?
I did not.
You never heard any call out that they were going to do that set?
No, not on the radio. I did not hear it. It doesn't mean it didn't happen and I didn't hear it, but
No, I just want to know what you heard.
I
You
did
didn't
not hear that. No.
Okay. No further questions.
Ooh.
Redirect.
Watch this redirect have a lot of incredulity.
Schaefer, are chest seals and IVs customary for movie set medics?
Chest seals, if you can get them, we'd not. It's not like we can go to a hospital and pick up equipment that or products that we would keep in our bags. Whatever we generally keep in our bags is something that we buy over the counter. There are ways to make chest seals, but they're not the most. They sometimes hurt more than help. IVs would be something that needs to be ordered, and if you do not have medical direction or a doctor that works at an ER that says, yes, you can work to your scope of practice or your license level. If you don't have that, which most medics in New Mexico don't have, most medics don't have that medical direction, you are not allowed to do that on outside of a hospital setting or outside of if you were employed by a EMS.
Okay. And shifting gears, you were asked on cross-examination some questions about whether or not safety checks of ammunition would have taken place outside your presence. Do you recall that question?
Yes.
In your experience, are the safety checks of the ammunition done in the presence of the crew and the cast?
Yes.
Do you know if there's a reason for that?
I'm not sure.
Well, if a safety check of ammunition was done outside the presence of the cast and crew, would the cast and crew have knowledge as to the level of safety associated with that ammunition?
Not if it was not done in front of them, no. But the cast and crew are all welcome to ask for it to happen.
Okay. You were asked some questions about a civil lawsuit, and you were asked if you were testifying today because you thought it would help your civil lawsuit.
Correct.
And I think your response was, you didn't do it for money. That's not how it started. So I'd like you to, and then I think you got cut off. I'd like you to go ahead and finish that.
The reason that I brought any kind of lawsuit to anybody in the beginnings is because I wanted change in our industry. I did not want something like this to be able to happen again to anybody else, to their families, to the crew that knows them as family. I wanted some sort of change to happen, some policy change, whether it be required to have a standby ambulance or it be required to have additional medics if there's going to be big stunts or big gunfire or anything that could potentially cause, somebody to become injured. I wanted that change in our industry because on that show, there were roughly 75 crew. That is minimal to compared to what I normally would have on set. I would have no less than 300 usually before I would be approved to have an additional medic to come and help me. That is just not okay. That is not okay. And being the only medic there with 2 patients, knowing my resources were not close enough to help in any significant way is what I wanted to change.
Mm.
And have you
Here's the thing. What she just said actually sounds a lot like what the defense is saying about Hannah's position. So, like, attacking her for her civil lawsuit, it feels even worse now because of that explanation that she just said. Hannah's whole point has been, I was not afforded the proper resources to properly do my job, and people got hurt as a result. That's what she's saying too. And so you like, this feels sincere to me. She hasn't had like a major swing in her emotions, like a sudden flip of a switch. Like she's kept things within a pretty narrow range. Like, yes, some anger, some frustration, but it's kept that sadness that she had as soon as she like walked up there to get sworn in. So I I really feel for her right now. She's a bad witness for the defense at this point. And this is a really strong way to end her redirect. I don't know, maybe Morrissey will ruin it by having like another like 10 minutes of questions that are meaningless, but we'll see.
suffered from extreme trauma as a result of this?
Yes.
Um,
Can I just expand?
Sure. Okay.
Well, so the reason why there's an objection is because she's asking to expand on that, which is kind of a whole new question. Morrissey can just say, you said that, that you were traumatized by all this. What did you mean by that? She'll just ask a follow-up. It's like the objection isn't really necessary for it. So yeah, this is a really sympathetic witness. And now, like, because of that, by going into that lawsuit there on redirect, she's given her a platform to talk about why she's suing and the change that she wants to see in the industry. And she is much better prepared to talk about those matters than Dolly Grip guy. What's his name? Ross, I think, Adiego. Benji says, "Isn't it weird that she's
Let's
suing while she was?"
proceed.
Okay, I'll do that after this.
Upon my questioning, you asked if I asked you about your claim for emotional distress, and you responded and asked if you could expand on that. The court is going to let you. Please expand.
Thank you.
I don't
I went home.
I don't like that she just did that. She's just like, I mean, it's whatever, it's fine. But like she's kind of doing a snide bar by explaining and like how she just like won on that objection, basically. I don't love it. I don't love it. It's not as bad as the stuff that was happening before, but I don't love it.
home that night and I looked at my little boy, who's the same age as Halyna's son. And all I could think about is how I could not save his mother's life and how he was going to grow up without a mother. And how her spouse lost the love of his life.
Understood.
I did not expect this testimony. I did not expect this testimony.
Oh.
So you're going to, and I mean no harm to you, but we're going to strike that testimony, okay? So disregard that testimony, okay? All right, let's.
Okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate your time.
All right, thank you.
Oh, that's how you end it. Oh, geez. Oh, is this a recross? No. So she's done. Okay. Isn't it weird that she's suing while she was working as an EMT? Like, wasn't she on set for exactly this reason? Well, I mean, I don't know. I think it's fine, but then again, my experience is in civil litigation mostly. Well, not. I'd say at least half is on the plaintiff side. So yeah, sorry guys, that was Indy. She has thoughts. um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. So, okay, looking for questions here. All right, let's see here. I think we can. Oh, sorry. Let's get some fast forwarding in here.
Mr. Bull? Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, fast forwarding more.
Expense, her
Okay.
emotional, the emotional expense, her narrative, where she said, can I expand on that? And then she continued on and on and on. That's what you're going to strike, okay? You're going to disregard that as evidence. The rest of it, her direct, her cross-examination, and then her redirect, except when she said, can I expand on that? And then went into, her personal trauma, okay? Any questions on that? Okay, thank you.
Are you ready for the next witness, Your Honor?
Yes, I am.
State calls Mamie Mitchell.
Mamie Mitchell. Why do I feel like that one also has a lawsuit? I feel like I've
Counsel?
heard that.
Counsel approach. Counsel approach.
Wasn't she also the one that called 911? A Scout and a Bradley, thanks for the super chat. Thanks, Indy, for getting, oh, my dog's going. Oh, man, I'm so sorry about that. Fast forwarding more.
Raise your right hand, ma'am.
Do you swear affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you'll give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Speak into the microphone, thank you.
Just 1 second to get my notes in order. Ma'am, will you state your full name for the record?
Mamie Elizabeth Mitchell.
And Ms. Mitchell, what do you do for a living?
I'm a substitute teacher.
How long have you been a substitute teacher?
2 years.
I think around 2.5 weeks.
Oh, that's
So
funny.
prior to being a substitute teacher, what did you do for a living?
I was a Hollywood script supervisor.
And can you explain to the jury what a script supervisor does?
Sometimes I pre-time the script.
We don't know what that means. We don't know what
I read the script, and in my mind, I give a producer and director an idea of how long their movie is. And based on that, they'll cut some scenes or add some scenes, build some sets or not build the sets. So it's a budgetary thing. While we're shooting a film, I provide the actors with lines if they need them. I keep the continuity in all areas.
And when you say you keep the continuity, can you explain to us what that means?
It means that your right hand is on your right hip and you're leaning on your left hand. And I'm going to make sure you do that every time we shoot.
That
Move the
scene.
camera, that scene for that dialogue. So it's maintaining the continuity, which brings me to the thing that I really do is to ensure that a film cuts together seamlessly in the editing room, which gives the director choices.
As a part of being a script supervisor, do you keep very close track of all of the filming that's done on the set and the scenes that have been filmed?
Yes, I log every shot, lens, how long the shot is, if it's incomplete, if it's good, if it's not good, if it's fair, if it's the best one. And if there's an airplane on line 6, but then the airplane, it's okay in line 9, sound, everything that has to do with photography, I have in here, and that's translated to the editing room.
Okay. How long were you a script supervisor before you decided to become a substitute teacher?
About 42 years.
And in those years that you have worked in the film industry, how many movies and TV shows do you think you've worked on?
74.
And of those 74 shows, if you can guesstimate for us, how many of those had live guns and an armorer?
I think I've worked with an armorer about 24 times on 24 films. Sometimes,
Yeah, go ahead.
sometimes maybe a gun is used one time. And if the armor was brought in for that, I'm not really aware of that. but when guns are really a part of a script, about 24 times.
Okay. Safe to say you have a lot of experience with armorers on movie sets.
I do.
As the script supervisor, are you present for every single take that is filmed for every single scene?
Unless it's a second unit and I have a second unit script supervisor. But for every first unit shot, I'm there for every take.
On the set of Rust, were you there for every take?
Yes.
Okay.
I boosted the sound.
So
It's a little bit quiet.
I am going to ask you if you noticed any differences between Ms. Gutierrez and the other armorers that you worked with on the previous 24 occasions.
Your objection.
All right, there's an objection here. Are we live or, oh, no, we can fast forward a little bit.
Ma'am, do you recall the question?
No, unfortunately not.
How did Ms. Gutierrez compare to the other previous 24 armorers that you worked with?
I found her to be inexperienced and did not present in the way that I'm used to seeing professional armorers, union armorers on a film set. It was different.
Did you find her behavior on the film set to be professional?
I did not.
Did you ever take notice of where firearms were stored during filming or around the set?
I saw them on her cart.
And when you saw them on her cart, was she present?
Not all the time.
And was that unusual?
Everything about the cart was unusual.
When you say everything about the cart was unusual, can you explain to the jury what you mean?
In my experience, what I have experienced on film sets is that the armorers are very quiet, focused, and very organized. Everything is very organized. And they're very focused. I don't know if I said that, but they're very focused and sort of methodical about everything. Their movements are very methodical.
I'm going to take you back to your concerns about the cart specifically. Can you explain what your concerns were with the state of the prop cart?
Well, I just never seen anything like it. It just reminded me, I mean, not that it reminded me, but the best way I can describe it is it was like that drawer in your kitchen where you just put stuff that doesn't really go anywhere else, the random
drawer.
things, and you go in to look for something, and just, it was messy to me. It looked different than what I was used to.
Did it seem organized?
No, it did not seem organized.
At any point in time, were you aware that there were what I'm going to refer to as accidental discharges that took place on set?
I was on the set at the cabin.
Hang on, you're a step ahead of me. Were you aware of the accidental discharges?
Yes,
Okay. Were you present for the accidental discharges?
yes.
Okay. Can you go ahead and explain to us what happened with regard to those accidental discharges?
Well, I believe the first one, I was walking Shall I describe the set? I was from here to where those people are back there away, walking back. We had camped out over here for a wide shot. And so we kind of moved back. And as I was walking back, there was a gunshot went off. There was a gunshot, and it was frightening.
And do you know the circumstances of that accidental discharge?
Well, it was one of them that I know about now.
No, that's okay. In terms of when you heard the gunshot go off, why was it frightening? It's a Western. You know, we've heard that there's lots of guns and blanks and.
Because it doesn't happen.
What doesn't happen?
Guns do not just go off on a film set.
In your career, do you recall having that ever happen to you?
I do not.
And can you give the jury a little bit of background on, given that guns go off on movie sets because there's blank ammunition in the gun and guns are being shot, why would it have startled you? What's the procedure usually for gunshots?
Fire in the hole. Someone yells, fire in the hole.
And what does that tell you when someone yells that? To tell us what you're doing.
Fingers in your ears, mouth open. You have to keep the mouth open.
Why do you keep your mouth open?
It helps your eardrums. Something about that. That's what we do. I've known that forever. You keep your mouth open and you go like this.
Okay. So
you protect your hearing.
With regard to the accidental discharges, did anyone call fire in the hole?
No.
And how many accidental discharges occurred while you were working on set?
2.
And do you recall if they were the same day?
They were the same day, same set.
Did they cause you to feel concerned?
I was concerned and I was confused.
What do you mean confused?
Shortly after I was hired by Roe Waters to do this movie.
No, I'm sorry. I think I understand, and I'm going to stop you.
Okay.
So let me and let's let me take you to. I'm sorry. Let me back up.
Okay.
Ma'am, you indicated that you are on the set of Rust. You were present for the live photo or short video.
Yes.
Okay. So you're using your phone for continuity.
Constantly.
Okay. What happens then?
Sorry.
Is that
No, yeah, we got to go
okay?
back. Let's skip
Particular-
forward again.
Yes.
Dang it.
Drawer in your kitchen where you just put stuff.
Okay, we got to go past
And
this.
with regard to those accidents, recall having that ever happen to you?
I do not.
Call fire in the hole.
No.
And how many accidental discharges occurred while you were working on set?
2.
And do you recall if they were the same day?
They were the same day, same set.
Did they cause you to feel concerned?
I was concerned and I was confused.
What do you mean confused?
Shortly after I was hired by Roe Waters to do this movie.
No, I'm sorry. I think I understand, and I'm going to stop you.
Okay.
So let me and let's let me Let me take you to, I'm sorry, let me back up.
Okay.
Ma'am, you indicated that you are on the set of Rust, you were present for the filming of every take of every scene, is that right?
Yes.
And I am, wait a minute, let's get out of there. Hang on.
No, how okay. The glitch is YouTube wanting me to get to live already.
I am going to show you what is marked as State's Exhibit 164. I'm going to ask to have it entered into evidence, admitted into evidence, and permission to publish.
No objection, Your Honor.
164 is admitted and you may publish.
So, Ms. Mitchell, you're present every time they're rolling camera, is that right, on Rust?
With the exception of sometimes, just a couple of times.
Hang on, let me ask you this. Do you recall meeting with me and me showing you a video that I wanted you to talk about? That was from October 17th. Do you recall that?
No.
Okay.
I don't, could you refresh my memory, please?
I will refresh your memory. We're going to have to unplug because I'm going to have to refresh.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's all right.
Oh, yes, I do.
Okay. Do you recall, you know what I'm talking about now?
I do.
Okay. Okay. I think we can turn them on.
I see what you mean, Howie.
Go ahead.
Tech, not her strong suit.
Were you present for the filming of that take?
Yes, I was.
All right. I'm going to pull up State's Exhibit 164 and publish.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Ma'am, do you recall the date that this particular take was filmed? I'm sorry. Hey, hang on just a second.
That's
In order
what I
for
have
you
to
to
refer to.
in order for you to refer to your notes, we need you to have a discussion with us.
Okay.
So, as you sit here today, do you recall the date that this was filmed?
I don't recall the date, but it's in my script.
Okay, would it refresh your memory if you looked at your notes?
Yes,
Okay, so what I want you to do, listen to me carefully.
I am.
I want you to look at your notes, and then I just want you to keep that information to yourself.
Wait a second, don't look at your notes.
Okay.
They get to approach you and see what you're looking at.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
I'm gonna have this. When you look in your notes, just take note of the date and then wait for a follow-up question, okay?
Okay.
Does counsel wish to approach to see what she's looking at?
I don't need to see her notes. Do you want to see her notes?
I'd like to see it.
Sure.
Show us a script.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so remember earlier there was a question about whether a witness can bring up notes to just kind of read off of, and I said it's got to be from memory. On this one, there's a lot of detail involved with the particular dates. I don't know. She's been allowed to bring in the script so she can take a look at when a particular scene happened, and so she's being allowed to refresh her recollection by going and looking at it. But before she does, or as she does, the defense attorney is taking an opportunity to look at the same thing that she's looking at to make sure that this is proper. So that's what's happening here.
Shall I open it up?
But they had to go through the steps first of
All right.
of
You can come around here.
her stating that she couldn't recall. Christina B. I know it was brought up, but has the prosecution finished with the drug use aspect? I haven't followed every day. I don't think so. There haven't been many questions about drugs. I thought that they were going to get to. I thought they were going to get to drugs being in the hotel room at the same time as rounds.
Ms. Mitchell, go ahead and take your time and see if you can find that. I apologize.
But what
I don't want to get into why this is confusing, but
what that witness testified to was just
Okay,
about
Brendan
there
came
being
in and
rounds
took
in the
the
hotel
page
room.
because I can't find it.
Hang on just a second.
I might have moved it.
Doherty, if she's found guilty, who will do the sentencing, judge or jury? Generally speaking, it could be
Should be
one-
October 20th. It's October 20th.
No,
No?
stop for a second. I told you to wait for a follow-up question.
Sorry.
Don't just speak, okay?
Okay.
There's got to be a whole procedure to this. Let me finish answering this. So sentencing can happen by a judge or a jury. We've seen both kinds of sentencing here. I don't know in this particular case whether it's bifurcated so that the judge will end up doing the sentencing, or if it's going to be all together, like what we saw in the love triangle murder trial. That was Texas versus Caitlin Armstrong. That one, the jury did sentencing, and it was like immediately following the verdict.
Wait with us.
Okay.
So the procedure that's supposed to happen here is, remember, she's refreshing her recollection with the script so she can tell her exactly which date they were rehearsing for something in particular. And so what happens is, or what's supposed to happen is, she's allowed to look at the thing that is supposed to refresh her recollection. She browses through it. You know, the attorneys agree that they're okay with this thing being used to refresh her recollection. Looks through it. She finishes looking through it. The attorney asks the witness, "Have you finished looking through it?" Yes. Does that refresh your recollection? Yes. Can you independently tell me now, what date this happened on? Yes. Okay. What date was it? But this witness, she's less familiar with the whole process. So she's trying to just volunteer the answer that she's ends up wanting to give, but she's got to she's got to be led through those steps first.
Here it is. I found it.
Are you sure?
I'm sure.
Okay, that's her memory refresh.
Okay, has your memory been refreshed as to the date?
Yes.
And let me just ask you, and you can close, take note of the date, okay? And is there something that's on the screen that helps you refer to your notes? No, go ahead and answer my question.
Yes.
What's on the screen that helps you refer, that helps you find that in your notes?
125 Charlie, the scene number.
Okay, so the 125C is the scene number. Is that what you said?
That's the slate number. The scene is 125. This is the slate number.
Okay. And so are you able to compare your notes to the information on that slate?
Yes.
And were you present for the filming of this take?
I was.
So those questions about the number that was on like the scene number, the slate number, those questions there, and the connection between that and the script notes that she has that has the same number in her script notes, what she's getting at is, this is a reliable way of refreshing your recollection, because this is something that lines up with with the snappy thing. Sorry guys, it's official terminology. The scene marker, the thing that goes snappy. So by that this is a normal thing that they line up. So this is a reliable way of refreshing her recollection. And remember, she told her she has to close the book, meaning she can't just read directly from it. She has to be able to independently talk about it without having it open and just like reading from the thing, because then we start getting into hearsay issues and all kinds of stuff like that. Yes, I think that's no other questions. I hope I didn't miss anything.
And what was the date that this was filmed on?
October 17th,
All right.
2021.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I'm going to go ahead and publish it now.
Thank you.
Hey, Mark. We got to do the footprints again. Hold on. So we're here. He's camera left? No, that's it. I'm sorry?
It's my understanding that part of your job is continuity. Is that right?
Correct.
So I'm going to ask you, can you identify this prop that we're looking at right here on Mr. Baldwin?
Yes.
What is that prop?
It's his over-the-shoulder holster
And
bandolier thing.
his holster or bandolier, you said?
Mm-hmm.
And what are these things that are right here?
Bullets.
And is that the way that the bandolier was loaded on October 17th?
Correct.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, let's shift gears a little bit. Ms. Mitchell, I'm going to take you to the date of October 21st, 2021. Were you working on set that day?
Yes.
We understand that there was some filming in the morning, and I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Do you recall taking a lunch break that day?
I do.
And well, let me back up. We've heard a lot of testimony that the camera crew walked off that day.
Yes.
And did you have a discussion with Mr. Souza and Ms. Hutchins about making the day?
I did.
Okay, without saying what they said, can you just tell us what you said to them in terms of that conversation?
I said, I turned to Halyna and I said, I shoot with one camera all my career until shooting with two cameras became the thing. I said, and then I looked at Joel and I said, if we're organized and you have a plan, we can make the day with one camera. And Halyna said, I shoot with the one camera too all the time.
Okay, provided only for context. So we understand that there was some filming and then you went to lunch. I want you to start after lunch, where it's our understanding that there's something going on in the church preparing for a scene. If you can describe that to us, please. Really quick before she gets into that, John O'Rourke, thanks so much for gifting 5 more Legalbytes memberships. Very kind and generous of you. The Fat Ghost, Barker, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, Obsidian Fox, and Jerry Roth, and Bill Roberts. You all have been gifted memberships, so welcome or welcome back to Bite Club. Very happy to have you guys here, and I hope you can join us for our members only live stream tomorrow, 10 a.m. East Coast time. Questions about what happened after lunch? Do you recall, let me ask you this, when you went into the church after lunch, were other people already there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And
After lunch.
after lunch, we're only going to talk about after lunch.
Okay. Yes.
So when you were in the church after lunch, who do you recall being in the church?
Doran Curtin,
And Ms. Curtin, what was her role on set?
wardrobe.
Okay. Keep going, please.
She had blood. She was going to refresh blood.
Well, that's foreshadowing.
Fake blood, I assume.
Fake blood.
Okay.
I switched places with her because she's real tall. And I said, could I stand in front of you? And we laughed, and I went in front of her. Halyna, Serge, my director, Ross, Zach, Alec Baldwin in the pew with the gun, Karen Kuhn.
Who's Karen Kuhn?
She's a still photographer,
Thank you.
and she was on this side.
Okay, thank you.
Coming into the church, I think there was a special effects guy there, maybe the supervisor.
Okay. Let me ask you this. When you came into the church, did Mr. Baldwin already have his gun?
Oh, yeah, yes,
Okay, so you didn't see how he got the gun or who handed him the gun?
I did not.
Okay, so you come into the church.
Dave Hall was there also.
Okay, Mr. Halls was there.
Sorry.
How long before the gun goes off are you in the church?
Not very long at all.
Okay, so when you come into the church, you've indicated these people were there. What was happening in the moments before the gun went off?
I switched place with Doran. Halyna was here, and she's doing her thing with the light, looking at him. She's doing her lighting. And people are not static on a film set. So it's a dance. And she's doing this and looking at there was an onboard monitor, and Joel is looking, and they're there, and she's doing her thing and looking at him and that. And I don't know what everybody else was doing, but that's what they were doing. Because
Okay.
I saw the camera. I had an idea of what shot it was. One of three. I hadn't seen the lens yet, so I wasn't sure what it was yet. And that's what they were doing.
And then what happened?
And then I took my phone out.
It's okay.
I took my phone
yeah.
out. Oh, the actor was practicing on his own.
Mr. Baldwin.
Yeah, he was practicing. And as I was doing, he was practicing. And then when I looked down to my phone got the picture. I was going to check his wardrobe, make sure everything matched.
And let me stop you. As a part of your continuity job, do you frequently take photos and videos on your phone?
I frequently take photos.
Okay.
Sometimes it flips. I take photos.
Okay. When you said sometimes it flips, on occasion, do you end up with a live photo or a short video?
Yes.
Okay. So you're using your phone for continuity.
Constantly.
Okay. What happens then?
So I got my picture, and I was going to check his wardrobe, and right when I was doing that explosion.
And when that happens, what do you do?
My body had it was a shock. And then I heard guttural moaning, and I looked around, and my director was crab crawling backwards. And then I turned around to look at Alec, and when I did, she was falling in my direction, and I ran.
And when you say she was falling, you mean
Halyna
Ms.
Hutchins was falling, and I ran
And why did you run?
to get help
And so,
and away from danger.
okay. Where did you go?
I ran out the door, down the steps to the left, towards one of the set. It was a set deck truck, one of the trucks, and with my phone, and I start dialing 911.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to play.
And are you the person that called 911 in this case?
I am.
And when you spoke to 911, how did you describe the incident that you were calling them for? Ms. Mitchell?
I believe I said we've had 2 people shot accidentally on a film set. We need help immediately.
And why did you use the word accidentally?
I did not want her to think there was an active shooter or a mass shooting. I needed and gather an army together. I wanted to come right away.
Okay.
Help.
In hindsight, for the investigation, that actually probably would have been good for an entire army to come in, as she put it, because of the fact that the investigation was just so it had flaws because of the number of deputies who could arrive in the short amount of time in comparison to the number of people who were there on set.
Right away.
And you thought that if law enforcement or medics thought that it was an active shooter, it may take them more time. Is that what you mean?
That's correct.
Okay. And ma'am, have you also filed a civil lawsuit against the production company and other folks in this case?
I have.
Are you testifying today because you think it's going to help your civil lawsuit?
No, it's not going to help my civil lawsuit at all.
Okay, finally we get a direct examination where the prosecutor is getting ahead of the litigation question, so that she is addressing it full front, and so far that very first question, not evasive at all.
Are you testifying truthfully today?
Of
I
course
am.
she's gonna say
Thank you, ma'am. I'll pass the witness.
Well, good afternoon.
Hi.
Hi. I just have a few questions for you, not too much. First of all, I want to go back to your movies with the other armors. You said there was about 24 of them, give or take. Okay. On those, did you ever have a situation where there was a part-time armor, to your knowledge, somebody that did part-time armory and part-time something else?
I think there might have been 1 or 2.
Were those day people, or was that part-time? What's that term you used earlier, day? When they just come in for a day and then they're gone?
A day player?
Day player. Were those day players, or was that a part-time armor?
Do you mean, was it a prop master who also does armory?
Yes, yes, even a day player who did both.
I don't remember. It's
Okay.
a day player.
Okay. Now, with regard to seeing the cart you mentioned, do you know whether when you saw the cart sometimes whether those firearms on there were real or whether they were replica firearms?
Not to my knowledge. I think everything was a real firearm.
Okay. Are you not aware whether there were any replica firearms, any fake type firearms on Rust?
No.
Okay. Now, also, you were aware that the armor would be called to scenes sometimes, right? That she'd have to be on a scene when they were filming?
I don't know what you mean by on a scene.
Okay, in or around it, when firearms were being used, she had to be in or around that scene?
All armors have to be present when a firearm is being used.
Okay, and that wasn't my question. My question was, did you know on this movie set that the armor sometimes had to be in or near the scene when firearms were being used?
Yes.
Okay. So on those times, it would be impossible for the armorer to be at her cart too, right?
Well, I've never heard of that before.
Well, kind of hard to be in two places at one time, isn't it? That's kind of the point. Now,
Objection.
did you know
That's
whether this
fine.
cart was shared with props and armory men?
I think it was.
So when, you saw the messy, and you described it, your kitchen drawer where you put everything, do you know if the props people were coming and putting their stuff on it too?
I think they were.
Okay. And so do you know who might have caused the, things to be in different places? Was it props, or you don't know who was doing that? Do you?
I do.
Who?
They were all doing it.
Okay. So did you see him?
Yes.
You saw Sarah Zachary putting stuff on it?
3 women at a cart. Sometimes.
Okay. Now, with regard to the discharge that you said you heard, you remember that?
Which one?
Well, you described when you were walking. I think you said you heard a sound, a shot. Is that right?
A misfire.
Yes. Okay.
2 of them.
Okay. Did you find out about that well after? Or were you actually there?
I was there. It almost blew my ears out.
Okay. Now, do you know whether any of that was special effects?
It was not special effects.
Did you report that to anybody?
Everyone, I didn't have to report it. Everybody knew it.
Okay. Everybody in production?
I don't know about production. Everyone on the set heard it.
Okay. Do you know if Dave Halls heard it?
Dave Halls was there.
Okay. So he would have known, so you wouldn't have had to tell him, right?
Everyone who was at that set, on that set, and there were a lot of people, heard the gun go off accidentally, twice.
She's been holding herself up pretty well.
Okay. Different topic.
I will say one thing that was pretty remarkable was the fact that when she was describing what happened in the church, when the gun, when Halyna was shot, when Alec Baldwin shot Halyna Hutchins, is that she actually wasn't overly emotional about it. It was interesting. And I'm not saying that as a criticism. I'm just saying, some folks will get more emotional of, recalling seeing that kind of an event. Others not so much, One thing that I did think about with respect to Joel Souza is that, folks in the chat were talking about how he was way less emotional, having been the guy that went through it. And that's interesting, because I wonder if part of that is because he didn't see what other people saw. Like, he saw that Halyna Hutchins was next to him, but I think he said that their heads were both turned in the opposite direction. So it's like I don't know how much of thumbs up. I don't know how much of that he saw of what was happening with her. And he obviously wouldn't have seen himself because he is himself. I don't know. So anyway, so I wonder if that can impact someone's emotions. And I will say that as soon as her direct examination was over and she was going to switch over to cross-examination, it did seem like as she was drinking the water bottle, she had a moment of like, I might break down. So that to me gave the impression that she was kind of feeling like she's keeping it together for the purposes of her testimony.
In the script, do you remember whether it required a draw in the scene on October 21st, 2021, after lunch? Did that scene require a draw from a holster? For the actor, for Mr. Baldwin to draw from his holster?
It did.
Okay. Do you remember if that required him to point the weapon?
That's not the shot that we discussed before lunch.
Okay. So was that in the script or not?
No.
Okay. I have nothing further on.
Oh, so he didn't go hard on the litigation questions.
I don't have any additional
Okay.
questions.
All right, thank you. You're excused.
No redirect.
You too.
Yeah, Kevin Horrocks, he absolutely described her big brown eyes. That was actually very emotional, the way that he described that. But he didn't describe blood or anything else coming in. You know, like he didn't describe anything else about her injury, which is interesting. Yeah, I think she did well. I think her testimony really held up, and Bowles certainly held back on grilling her about her litigation. So, okay. Questions. Oh yeah, I answered this one already, Christina B, about the drugs. The hotel worker had testified about the ammo in the room, but I thought he was going to testify also about seeing drugs at the same time, but he didn't testify about that. So maybe that'll be somebody else. I don't know. It seems like there needs to be more for the evidence tampering thing. Jeff Kane, I understand the max is 18 months, but I thought the second charge with gun enhancement means 5 years mandatory prison. Can you clear that up, please? Thanks. Yes, I can. Initially, that was something that was added as an enhancement for both Hannah Gutierrez-Reed and Alec Baldwin. However, the shooting incident happened in October 2021, and the sentencing or the enhancement for the firearm the firearm incident went into effect after the incident. So it was not in existence on the books in the laws of the state of New Mexico at the time that the incident happened. And when that is the case, you cannot retroactively apply a criminal punishment or a criminal enhancement onto a previous incident that's already existed. So for example, in places where, you know, marijuana is legal right now, if you were to go like 5 years from now and that state is like, actually, no, we want to recriminalize this. They can't look back and be like, all right, all of you guys that were using this substance while it was legal, we are going to go after all of you guys and put you in prison. Can't do that. It's unconstitutional. So they had to, when they were the prosecutors had a big oopsie with those, and they had to remove those enhancements for both Hannah Gutierrez-Reed and for Alec Baldwin. Christopher Lambert, can Hannah testify at Alec's trial? Would the prosecution want her to? She can. I don't know that she wants to. And I don't, yeah, I mean,
We're going to break for the week. So, you know, just because we did a whole week, all right, I don't want to confuse anybody. We're going to break for the day, okay?
Oh,
all right.
Really break today.
So, please don't talk among yourselves or anyone else about the evidence received here in court. Do not do any research. Do not Google about the case or the trial. You know,
Don't go on the YouTubes.
the Rust production, anything. Okay, the evidence is what you receive in court. Very, very important. Okay. Have a good and safe weekend. We'll see you.
So can Hannah testify at Alec's trial?
One of the jurors wants to be reassured that we're not going past the 8th. I can't give that reassurance. Okay.
Can we approach on
Yeah,
that though?
sure.
Might be helpful.
The way that she's like, hey. Okay, so the judge cannot give assurances at this point about going beyond the 8th. I'm wondering if part of that is because of the jury deliberations, because obviously, like, you know, we are watching this through closing arguments, and then, you know, the verdict. I would like to do a verdict watch, but the jury has to be there in between while they're deliberating as well. Okay, so would the prosecution even want her to testify? You know, I don't know. I don't actually know if they would. She could have some good testimony for them, but I mean, she's going to be antagonistic to them for sure. She probably would be antagonistic to Alec Baldwin's attorneys as well. I don't know. It's a crapshoot in my opinion. Joanne, can you please explain the definition of involuntary manslaughter? Okay, so there are two alternative counts of involuntary manslaughter here. One is
that correct? Okay. You don't have to, nobody has to nod their head on which one of you wants to know. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so not past, whether it's going to go past the 8th, they think that they will finish their case the day before that.
And that would be finishing both cases.
Yes,
Okay.
assuming everything goes at the right clip. But then, so,
Judge, just a point of clarification. What we discussed is that we expect, hopefully, to be doing closing arguments the morning of the 7th.
okay, but that doesn't mean your deliberations are not going to go past the 8th. All right? Because once it's handed to you, it's however long you all deliberate. Okay? So I would say, in an abundance of caution, that it will go past the 8th as far as deliberations go. That's in an abundance of caution. Okay? Just knowing jurors have to get situated after they get the evidence, and then, it just depends. Okay? Am I making myself clear? Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. We're in recess.
So Peeps 85, should this be sidebar? This doesn't need to be because she's actually communicating directly with the jury. So usually sidebars are first and foremost to keep the conversation outside the presence of the jury, and then second to keep it outside the presence of the public, for a number of reasons, but primarily they don't want the jury hearing it. Okay, the other question as to involuntary manslaughter. So there are two alternative charges of involuntary manslaughter here. Let me read what the statute says really quick, and then I'll break it down. So the first one is negligent use of a deadly weapon. The second one is when someone has committed in the when the defendant has caused the death of a person, and that death was committed in the commission of a lawful act which might produce death in an unlawful manner or without due caution and circumspection. I know it's a mouthful. But basically both of them involve doing something that can be dangerous and being negligent about it. The first one is specifically naming a firearm. The second one is just doing something and not using the proper due caution and circumspection. So like I said, it's negligence. So what is negligence? How do we define negligence? Basically, it's when you have a duty to either Okay, sorry. I always forget to pause the stream and then it like automatically goes to something else. So when we're talking about negligence, we're talking about somebody has a duty to either do something and they didn't do that thing they were supposed to do, or they have a duty not to do something and they did it. So here we're talking about in Hannah Gutierrez-Reed's case, we are talking about someone who has a duty to maintain safety in terms of firearms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to do her job as an armorer. So first you've got to find if there is a duty and what that duty is. And then second, you've got to find if she breached that duty. So all of this talk about what are the responsibilities of the armorer? What is the armorer supposed to do every single time? All of those are getting to that duty prong. And then the breach prong is all about, did she do something wrong in the course and scope of her duties that she was, one of the things that she was supposed to do? Did she fail to do what she was supposed to do? So the accusations about other circumstances on set being so chaotic that she couldn't possibly do her job, that would get into the breach element. That would maybe interrupt the breach element of her having breached her duties, because could she have breached her duties if it was impossible for her to perform them in the first place? So I know guys, I'm using the word duties a lot. In law school, I had like Peter Griffin from Family Guy in my ear every single time that we were in torts and learning about negligence and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, that's basically what it is. It's if you really want to just boil it down, it's did they have a certain responsibility under the law, and did they do what they were supposed to do within those responsibilities? Did they meet the duty of care? And if they didn't, did somebody get hurt, and did they cause that harm? So the questions about, you know, the medical care afterwards, the mistake, you know, the intubation, all that kind of stuff, the defense is trying to get to causation on that one, that it wasn't so much Hannah's, you know, potential negligence here, or you know, her failings in what she did that ended up killing Halyna Hutchins. It was you know, the fact that the helicopter took so long to take off, and that there was, you know, 2 wrong intubations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, the medical examiner testified that no, the cause of death, according to her, the cause of death was the shooting itself. It wasn't the medical care afterwards, it was the shooting itself. So, so yeah, so that's it in a nutshell, and we can even get into more detail about that. But that's like, if you want like the quick and dirty of like how to explain that, that's really what we're talking about here, is negligence involving some sort of dangerous item like a firearm. So okay, I'm going to end the poll now. So this one is a little bit different than the ones that we've been doing in the past. It is, what do you think the jury will choose regarding involuntary manslaughter? Not how are you personally leaning, but what do you think the jury will choose? 61% said guilty, 24% said hung, 14% said not guilty. So, and remember, it's got to be unanimous in order for there to be a guilty verdict. So to me, I honestly have I have a mind that thinks that there's a really good likelihood of a hung jury here, because I think that the defense has done a good enough job of throwing enough mud in the water to really kind of muddy things up. I'm not being very articulate in this moment. But yeah, I mean, they're throwing a lot of mud in all of this to make things a lot less clear. And the more clear they are, the more likely it is for a conviction. The less clear they are, the more likely it is that the jury's going to find reasonable doubt or just not be able to agree. Suki London, thanks so much for the super chat. Thank you, Legalbytes mods and chat, for a fun and informative week. Have a great weekend, everyone. Yes, have a wonderful weekend to you too. So let's see, questions in here. Dionysia Jaclo, my thoughts on Hannah's lawyer so far. You know, there are a lot of things that I think need to be cleaned up. They've had some opportunities that they've missed, some strategic decisions that I would do differently. Overall, like, you know, there's always this question that comes up of like, you know, if we're being critical of attorneys on any particular side, there's always this question of like, you know, can the client sue for ineffective assistance of counsel? That's not going to happen here, because the attorneys are doing a competent job. However, you know, although I am being critical of them in a number of ways, but yeah, those criticisms definitely don't get to the point of like ineffective assistance of counsel or anything like that, or any kind of professional responsibility issues, or, you know. And also, I do want to remind you guys that, you know, I am a licensed attorney. I am, you know, I'm a litigator by experience. However, I am sitting here as an observer. I'm not the one that's in the arena. So I do try to remind myself that when I get critical of these people, they are the ones that are actually in the arena. It is always 100 times harder to be the one actually down there on the ground floor doing the thing than to be the one like me commenting on it and giving their thoughts on like, no, you should do this, you should do that. And yeah. So anyway, so I want to point that out, because you know, it can be easy to get carried away with criticism, especially when you're not intimately involved in it. Also, I see from Benji in the chat, is it resuming Monday? Yes, we are resuming on Monday. And yeah, Monday morning, same thing, same time. Okay. All right, guys, that is going to be about it. Happy Friday to all of you. This has been wonderful. Thanks so much for joining me on this whole journey. We're supposedly, I guess, about halfway through this trial. So what a journey it has been, right? Thanks for engaging in the chat or in the comments throughout the week. It's been great. Also, all of the super chats and super stickers and folks that are joining Bite Club and gifting Bite Club memberships to people. I so appreciate that. All of that support has been absolutely wonderful. And mods, thank you so much for all the stuff that you do to keep the flow of conversation and dialogue going in a way that is constructive, you know? Okay, guys. I think that's about it. Indy came by to say goodbye, right, Puppy Bear? And as did little Mavy over here. Hey, kitty. Okay, guys. With that, we should end the stream, shouldn't we? Right? Okay. All right, let's go. I'll see you guys bright and early on Monday. And those of you in Bite Club, I hope to see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. East Coast time also. See you guys.